All right, we're rolling.
Okay.
How you doing today, Craig?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. I'm doing all right myself. Um, Welcome everyone else who may be watching all 2 minutes, 2 seconds, 2 hours, however long we go with this. Greg and I decided we were going to whip together a few points and discuss them and share them with people who have found our page, found a video obscurely on the internet. I wrote a few articles based off of Melissa Isaac's Anatomy of a Custody Case. She's done this a few different times, I think. She did this once in 2019 in Las Vegas at a convention, excuse me, associated with the fathers' rights movement. I was there, became acquainted with Melissa, and very recently we had a discussion, in fact, last week, and I told her about my article writing of hers, and she was excited to hear it. And she's excited to collaborate as well in the future with some projects we have coming up. So look forward to that. Moving on, we have some articles on our website. I'll show you really quick for those that may be interested where we're getting some of this. There it is. I think I have about 8 or 9 of these on the website. And we're going to break down some of the points in these first 2 articles to share with whoever may be listening. If you have found yourself in the midst of a custody case, Craig and I are going to break up the points and sort of unpack them as we see fit. So I guess, Craig, what did we determine? I don't remember. Did we, who picked, did you pick evens or odds? Or did
I
I?
I picked evens.
Evens. Okay. What it is that you counted and saw that there were more odds.
Well, I knew you like to talk a lot, so I thought you'd start out with an odd.
Oh, man. What a roast. Okay. Well, I guess let's get into it. So, like I said, we put something together here, and we'll go back and forth on some of these points. So if you found yourself fresh into custody, divorce, you just found out baby mama's pregnant and she doesn't want you around or something like that, we put together some points to discuss to maybe give you guys the drop, a heads up on how to be prepared, get involved, and protect yourself. So without further ado, we'll go into point number 1, and that is, in many cases, you're not starting equal. Before anything starts, you need to know where you stand. And typically, married fathers in most states automatically have legal rights. Unmarried fathers, again, especially depending on the state, may not have rights. You can raise your child for years and still legally be nothing. And also, you could be the biological parent of a child and prove it and still not have any rights. Everything we say today is just anecdotal advice, information we've found either from helping other dads or that we've learned ourselves. We're not attorneys. We're not giving you legal advice, but we've been around doing this long enough to know how some of these things go. I will say, years back when I was volunteering with another organization, I had a father reach out to me. I can't remember what state, but he was in one of the states that Melissa practices in, Melissa Isaac, or it was a nearby state. And the father said, "Hey, I hooked up with this lady. She was in the middle of going through a divorce, and she was done. Like, she was getting the divorce, it was done. And we got together. She conceived, and then she changed her mind, and she stayed with her husband. And I know that that's my child. She knows that's my child, but she wants him to raise it as his own. What do I do?" And I reached out to Melissa, and in that state, that dad had no rights. If the husband determined that he wants to raise this child as his own, even if this guy went to the court, he would have no standing because he wasn't the married father, or the he wasn't the spouse. and the state recognized the spouse as the father. So that's not to say you don't have things that you can do, but it's something to be aware of. So that was point one. I guess we'll go back and forth. Craig, do you have any thoughts,
Well,
contributions?
one thought that comes to mind there, yeah, if you're the married father, you have automatic legal rights, and if you're not married, they, from what I understand, they don't even need to put your name on the birth certificate. But I would recommend, whether you're married or not, get a DNA test, because I just dealt with this with another father just a couple of weeks ago, and he can't even find his child, which he believes is his child, but he's not on the birth certificate, and there's been no DNA test ever done. So there's a chance that he's not even the father, yet he feels some kind of an attachment because he was dating this woman and she got pregnant and he thought it was his, but there's no proof it's his. He doesn't even know if it's his, but he's psychologically, he wants it to be his. So I told him, the first thing I think he needs to do in his case is get a DNA test to find out what's going on there, so that he can establish some legal rights to begin with. So I think I would just add that. And from some articles I've read of dads and fathers or men that do DNA tests, it's as high as 25 to 30% come back it's not their child. And
Wow.
that's kind of a shocking percentage. So that might be something to be considered first.
Well, 25% ain't nothing.
Yeah, it's a lot. So
yeah, and I guess it doesn't really matter what perspective you're coming at this from, because I mean, some dads, boy, I didn't realize that we were going to get into something so hairy so quick. But I mean, so women in many states, most states still have the option to have an abortion. Some women will conceive a child under false pretense, right? So, I mean, she told you that she was, on birth control, and or maybe you wore a contraceptive and it didn't work, or one of you was lying. I don't know. Who knows, right? You didn't mean to have a kid, is the point. And surprise, you do. Women in most scenarios have the option to not have that child. You don't get that choice. The second you put your name on that birth certificate, you're responsible. 18 up to 26 in some states. And if you didn't intend to, I'm not necessarily going to take a side on the abortion thing, but if it exists, I believe in paper abortions. That's a hot take.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, if that exists, then men should also have the ability to say, no, we did not intend to do this. We did not agree to this. If you get your ultimate choice, then I should also have that choice. And so the second you put your name on that birth certificate, you're hooked for life, or at least 18 to 26, right? So
your bank account's hooked for sure.
Right. And I'm not trying to say like women are being malicious or that, you shouldn't want to support your kid. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, from the other side of what you were saying about, getting a DNA test, well, what if what if you didn't mean to, and you just try to do the right thing and say, okay, I'll put my name on it, and it's not even yours anyways.
Yeah.
So,
well, and to spin off of that, we've all heard of those cases where there's a divorce later, maybe the child's 6 years old, and dad finds out that, and he's been raising this child as if it was his, thinking it was his, and he finds out, child 6 years old, that it's not his, and he's paying child support, and you go to the court and say, hey, found out this kid's not even mine, and the judge says, I don't care, you're paying child support anyway. And
Right.
there's been cases where they've tracked down the real dad, and judge says, I don't care, you're paying child support till they're 19 years old. So
Probably should get that DNA test.
yeah, probably better. Shall we move to point 2?
Sure.
Okay. That's
Before
an
before we
even,
get,
so I guess that's my turn now.
yeah.
Okay.
Are you're just trying to keep it from getting too dangerous?
Yeah.
All right.
Don't want to upset anybody, right? So point 2, time works against you. If you wait, you're building a case against yourself. If you move out and the kids stay with mom, time passes. That becomes the status quo. And in family court, status quo is everything. So, basically, if you move out and she's got more time with the kids, or maybe she's denying you the ability to see your own kids, you're now out of the house. It kind of goes to that possessions 9/10 of the law kind of thing. And you'll probably be guaranteed that she's going to spin it like you abandoned the children, abandoned the family in your house and everything else. And the courts are going to frown against that anyway. They're going to frown against it for sure. And it seems like a mother can walk in a courtroom and a man can walk in the courtroom. And it seems like in far too many cases, the mother has the upper hand in the legal battle. So if you've moved out, if she's having more time with the kids, because even if she's not allowing you to have access, it comes down to who are they going to believe. And it just seems like they believe mom far too often. And so that's my start on that.
Yeah. So if you find yourself in a custody dispute, um, this is probably more towards married fathers. I guess the point is, don't change anything until you have that custody order in hand. Whether you, um, some states offer on their websites like a temporary custody motion that you can file. Whatever it is, just it always works best if it is what it already is. That way it can't be refuted. But like Craig said, if you move out and you want a temporary order, then the judge is going to look at it and say, okay, well, you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment and she's in the house with the kids. Why would we change this? This is, you moved out, so that must be what you want, is to be the visitor in the scenario. So 1,000%, if you can get a temporary order in the middle of your divorce proceedings, you should do that. Do that as quickly as possible, because there are too many opportunities to have allegations made or things to escalate. I mean, this person knows you, they know all the buttons to push. If things aren't going their way, you just need to get in front of that, because if you allow things to spiral out of control, and then either they call the cops or you have to just, I got to move out or I'm going to go crazy, it's too late. So yeah, that's great advice. Get that custody order ASAP. And some states also offer emergency custody orders. A lot of people on the other side weaponize these. I'm not a fan of filing emergency orders, but at the same time, you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself, protect your kids. So whatever that looks like.
Well, and I think you want to maintain that connection with your kids. And, if you've been visiting them at school, continue doing that. Work at getting that parenting time established and maintain that contact. I think the other party may try and sever some of that contact as it is. So you want to stay as involved as you possibly can. and make things as normal as far as your relationship with the children as you can through the whole process. Maybe you have a sane ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, and she recognizes your importance as a father, but it seems far too often that's not the case, and things get heated. And if allegations start being made, restraining orders filed, in other words, roadblocks into you maintaining that contact with your children, that definitely affects time, works against you. You won't have the time, and that gives her time to start eroding your role as a father too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, point 3 would be most dads get blindsided when the paperwork is filed if you're not the one filing it. And I guess the point of that is you're playing catch up at this point. So, I mean, if m- a lot of guys think that the case starts when the paperwork is filed, but it doesn't. It starts when the relationship breaks down. And so, whoever has the kids, like we were talking about before, like if you left and mom has the kids, or if you're a mom watching our stuff, and we're here for families. I know it's in the name Fathers Anonymous, but we're not sexist, misogynist. Like we just want what's best for the kids. Anyway, it starts when the relationship breaks down, and who has the kids, who handles the daily life, who leaves, that becomes the pattern. And that pattern sort of determines your case, like we were talking about before. So by the time you're in court, you're not you're not starting fresh with a court case, that you're playing catch up. So if you find yourself in this scenario and you're shocked, you don't know what to do, I think I think this might be one of the other points, so I might be getting ahead of it, but you need to take a look around at your landscape, see where you're at, and you need to start getting involved and getting ahead of anything as soon as possible. Now, like the other point, um, one of the things Craig said was get that DNA test. That's like a lot of people take that for granted. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's awkward, right?
Yeah.
It's awkward. You're in a committed relationship. You have no reason to think that the other person would be unfaithful to you, but I don't know. It's a big commitment. So anyway, all right. So that was my point 3, is that if you're getting served papers, it can be shocking. It can be surprising. If you need help in dealing with that, join one of our support groups. We'll talk you through what we can. But just know, if you were blindsided by this, you're behind on the 8 ball, and you got some catching up to do.
Well, and I would add, even if you were expecting to be served papers, expecting a divorce to occur, boy, you get served those papers. You could use the word blindsided or hit upside the head. I don't care how much you expect that to happen. It's a shock, and it can be a major shock, especially when you start going through there and seeing what might be taken away from you as far as a relationship with your child and your property and your soul. Um, so it's going to sting for sure. I think on this point, the only thing I would add would be, don't be so shocked or stressed that you don't deal with it. There's legal deadlines here. Um, I'm not going to say most or some, but I think there's a fair amount of states that maybe there's a 30-day time period, as just an example, that you have to respond to that. And time goes by quick. So whether you choose to do this by yourself or hire an attorney, you need to legally respond to those papers that you were served with. And basically your counter, you can call it a suit. You're kind of counter suing with what you want out of the situation. But don't just be so stressed or depressed that you do not act, and the other party wins what they want by default. So yeah, it's going to be a big slap upside the head, and you might be blindsided, but you need to deal with this. It's your future, your entire life, your future with your children, and it can have very devastating effect on you financially too. So you definitely need to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and probably worth its own video. But um, in these sorts of cases, whether it's a DV allegation, it's just a normal dissolution proceeding, they're just gonna throw whatever at the wall to see what sticks. And if you don't show up, then everything can stick. It'll just turn into what Craig said is a default ruling. And that means you didn't show up, so you must have agreed. And man, some of these can have lifelong effects on you. And I think we've talked about this in the past, either in one of our support group meetings or in a video, but um, it at minimum, refute whatever disparaging claims that can like have a restraining order or something like that stick on you, because uh, it, you know, those default rulings will bite you. And again, that she could say that you took your kids to the moon and deprived them of oxygen. And as crazy as it might sound, um, if you don't even fight it, if you don't say no, I didn't do that, if you literally just don't show up to court and say I didn't do that, then I, I know it sounds extreme, and it is kind of an extreme example, but um, she might win by default because you didn't show up. So don't let the fact that it swept you off your feet keep you from showing up. So
Well, and very quickly, and we'll discuss this in a future video too, but there's a knock on the door, and you open the door, it's a sheriff there, and he's issuing you a court order, a restraining order that she filed for, alleging that you were violent and dangerous and all this kind of thing, and now you can't see your children at all. You got to stay within 100 yards of her, and by the way, they're going to confiscate all your guns in the home because that's not allowed. You can't have a gun in your state if you got a restraining order. And as far as blindsided, boy, when you see that badge at the door, you'd be blindsided. And if you do have a false restraining order filed against you, act on that immediately. Get that thing pulled, fight it to the hilt, because that can have all kinds of very terrible effects on you, your job, future career, everything. But that's another topic.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that can be really blindsiding.
Yeah.
I think the next one's yours, right?
Yeah. Point 4, an allegation can change everything. Without proof, no evidence, just a mere allegation. Maybe it's domestic violence, abuse, your controlling behavior. Those things alone can limit or cut off access to your children. And I think I'm going to just throw in maybe something personal here. We were already divorced, and we had basically a kind of a 50-50 contractual shared parenting agreement that fell apart because she no longer wanted to do it. And so it forced us into going into a custodial dispute, which I had to file because she totally kept the kids away from me. And then they do a custodial evaluation. Basically, a social worker comes out and rapes you through your entire life, talks to your neighbors, friends, relatives, complete investigation on your entire family. But it comes out you're too religious when you're not, or maybe your house is too clean, you're too moralistic, you're too controlling because you actually think the kids should do their homework. Her house is the party house, and you're being the responsible dad, but without any kind of proof or evidence, they're going to paint you as the inferior parent. And all those things are allegations, whether your ex-wife is alleging them, or even some social worker that met with you for 1 hour, met with your kids for 45 minutes, and all of a sudden comes up with all kinds of opinions about who's going to be the best parent and what's best for your kids. So those allegations or preconceived notions about you, your family, can have a dramatic effect on the entire case.
Yeah.
I guess
I
to add to that, you need to, you need to have a real deep discussion with yourself and your attorney on how you are going to convince the court or convince these social workers that um, these allegations are not true, these perceptions are not true, or these what's called confirmation bias, where the social worker already wants to give the kids to mom, and she doesn't even care what your evidence is or care what kind of good person you are, and the social worker wants to paint you in a bad light to the court. So you need to be prepared for that, and that's where documentation and evidence, dates, times, places, right from day one, when you see the relationship falling apart before we go back up to step one in your served papers, you need to document all your evidence in great detail, and witnesses, um, witness statements, photographs, tape recordings when it's legal in your state, to refute anything that the social worker, a guardian ad litem, or your ex is alleging.
Yeah, it's hard for me to unpack these anymore without going into two of the other points down the road. But
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is that if you leave an inch, the court or your ex will take a mile. And so any allegation that you leave room for can and will be used against you, and it will be a lot of headache and hurt and time and money spent endured on your part. So if you can rise above any of the pokings, the proddings, the button pushings, and then, like Craig said, document, protect yourself, you can avoid some of these allegations. Not that you'll avoid all of them, but uh, I think this goes back to the other thing about being blindsided. If you have a custody case and this is new to you, just plan on it. Just expect that it's going to happen, because when it does, if it does, it will shock you. The things that someone can say about you after having known you for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, living with them, and that they know that that's not you, that you would never do those things or say those things or even feel those things, and yet they can say whatever they wanna say, go downtown, file an ex parte order for protection, a restraining order against you, and say they fear for their lives, and it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what's true, what can be believed, like, or who it doesn't matter if you have if you're Superman, I don't know. It doesn't matter at that point. Once they file it, it's out of anyone's hands. It's now a procedure and you're in the game. So just know that once that sort of thing starts, you're in for a ride, and it can change everything. So I don't know. That's all I have to say on that one. Do you have any more?
Um, well, and like David said, expect the allegations. They're going to happen. And I think sometimes, and we're a support group for fathers, so it's okay for me to say this, but it's no secret that a lot of these women will get together, and maybe initially she didn't want to go, let's say, go negative, but her girlfriends start prodding her, and it's like, no, take him for everything. He wronged you once, so you need to wrong him more so. And there's even been reports that um, unscrupulous attorneys will even suggest that a mother make false allegations against the father to get the upper hand in court. And again, if these allegations are false, I just think you have to fight them to the end, and prove yourself, you know, that you're a worthy father and that these things that are being alleged are not true.
Yeah, to validate what you're saying, in the state that I once lived in, there's an opportunity to acquire hours practicing under a bar licensed attorney. Um, after you accumulate so many hours, you can get signed off to take the bar exam. There's only a few of those states in the US. Anyways, as part of that program, I was interested and sought out some resources. And I, during COVID, sat in on virtually a CLE, which is a continuing legal education that attorneys in most states have to do. They have to do so many hours to maintain their license. And I, well, I'm not going to say that. I'll protect myself. Let's just say I sat in on one of these CLEs where the facilitator all but recommended the attorneys to use what we call the silver bullet tactic, and that is incite your client to say that they had an incident or that they just fear for their lives, to gain an upper hand in a custody fight. And they'll do this tactic one of many ways, but it's as simple as asking the question in a very probing manner. Are you sure you never feared during your relationship? Are you sure when he raised his voice, did you think he was going to do something to you or the kids? So they can kind of like navigate these waters in this vague arena. Well, I may as well go into the fifth point, which it is this, and that is that vague claims get weaponized. And so, saying like he's controlling, he's abusive, he makes me feel unsafe. They sound serious, and they're also undefined. And so you can frame like a normal situation. Oh my God. There's like these different forms of abuse these days. And so like you let's say you're the sole earner in your family. Um and it's hard, especially nowadays, to not be dual income, right? And simply managing your money could be construed as financial abuse, right? Like if you know, it happened to me actually. Like I would go to this gas station on the way to work at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I worked 12-hour shifts, and I would stop at this gas station. They made these awesome burritos. Way too big, way too much. But I didn't like the quinoa and grains that my health-focused ex-wife wanted me to eat. And anyways, the point is that I was getting something to have breakfast. And that would be used as me, like, foolishly spending money on something we didn't need. Meanwhile, I can't think of an example, but I'm just going to make an example. Like, meanwhile, if my ex, say, signed up for this yoga class for 9 months, I don't know, for $100 a month, so $900. If I say, well, I don't know if we can afford to do that, right? You can do yoga at home, right? Then it would be turned around like, well, you buy all these burritos or whatever. Of course, I'm trying to eat to live. But the point is that this scenario can be used to say, well, he gets to do what he wants. He gets to spend money how he wants to provide and nurture himself. And I'm trying to do this to provide and nurture for myself. And he won't do it. That's financial abuse. Then there's emotional abuse, arguments. I remember a scenario personally where we were having an argument, and it seemed like that the other person would always want to run away. And so I was just more assertive, and I kind of like said, no, you're going to stop. You're going to listen to what I have to say. And because of that, I was being like physically intimidating, I guess. So I don't know. Setting boundaries can be manipulation. Once the labels are there, they sort of stick. And especially when they're ambiguous, because it leaves the other person this room to sort of interpret whatever they think. I remember there were allegations of me made, and it was like, I don't know, he was kind of abusive, and maybe there was sexual stuff too. And it's like that maybe could mean anything. And it just lets the mind wander to the darkest thing. None of it was true. 0% of it was true. Not even an atom of it was true. But the fact that it was planted in a very vague way meant anything. And so I think the the takeaway of this point is to maybe don't bite in to the claims, because they're going to upset you, and just refute the facts, right? Like don't let it emotionally control you, because it's just vague. And if you can come with definitive facts, they're not going to have anything to stand on. And in court, and especially if you are in the point to where you're having to be cross-examined, which, by the way, small extra tidbit here, only answer what needs to be answered. Don't elaborate, don't do anything, just answer the question. Because especially if the other person has an attorney, they're sort of trained to be able to hook you and reel you in. So just answer the question. But if you have definitive facts, definitive information, you can easily circumnavigate these like vague accusations. And at some point, if all of these vague things keep getting brought up and you just have straightforward answers, eventually I think most judges, they don't like being they have this sort of air of respect that they think that they're owed, for better or worse. And if they perceive that you're playing a game with them or trying to manipulate them, um, they're not going to stand for it. And so if your ex is doing these things where she makes these vague accusations, and the judge, all right, I've had enough. This is getting too much. You'll eventually come on top. So I guess that's my spiel for the vague claims.
I don't have a whole lot to add to that, but again, like you said, what are normal situations that would be normal to most people once you're involved in a custody dispute or a divorce, everything gets blown out of proportion. And you can just assume that false claims are going to be made and there's going to be allegations made against you. And I think the most important thing is that you need to refute them, you need to fight them, because if you don't, if you leave a false claim hanging out there, then it's going to be perceived as factual and truth. So I would just say you just can't leave those false allegations lay. And hopefully the judge sees through that, especially if they're just some of them become silly and stupid, quite frankly. So in court, like David said, answer just the question, don't volunteer anything else, but also maintain your composure, be calm, cool, and don't be a smart ass by any means. Just be trying to be a good person. Now, there's a decorum in the courtroom. We need to respect the court, whether we like it or not. So
I think you did an excellent segue into your next point.
Oh, I better look at it. Must be number 6. You are only you are one moment away, one argument away, one emotional reaction, one clip taken out of context that can outweigh years of being a good dad. What it's saying there is, and these can be perceived too, but things are going to be served upon you, said about you, that should maybe elicit a violent and angry reaction. If so, do that in private, okay? But you're going to get very emotional, very upset about a lot of these things. But for God's sakes, don't do it over the phone, over email, text, to your ex. Don't have any witnesses to anything, even if it's your own family, because sometimes your own family has been sucked into the other side. If you react emotionally or get argumentative, and this gets back to a social worker or the court, um, one incident can outweigh, just like I said earlier, the years that you've been a good father. And that's all it takes. And it may be how that's spun and painted to the court also. I can throw out an example. It's actually one of those silly things. Okay. My ex-wife and I and our children, this is when we're married. No, is my current wife. Oh, I'm in trouble now. My current wife and I and the children are out having a steak dinner.
Who's a marvelous woman, by the way.
Yes, she is.
Let the record show.
Yes. But we're out having a nice steak dinner at a nice local steakhouse, and they have these great honey rolls, and they got honey butter for those rolls. Well, my daughter, who's maybe 8 or 9, she's just feasting out on these honey rolls. And I'm eating my steak, and I just say, and I just kind of waving my knife with a smile on my face. I said, now you take another one of those. I'm gonna have to stick you, you know. It was just all a joke and jest. It's not like she took it serious at the time or cried or anything else. But when your kids go back to your ex-wife, they report things or they're pumped for information. Well, this thing came out. So you go through a custody dispute 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years later, and this comes up. And it comes out this way. You threaten to stab your daughter with a knife. Okay? So the most innocent things that you say or do are going to be spun to make you look evil. So, you have to be careful. And again, you got to expect that these things are going to happen. And that wasn't even an emotional reaction. It was a joke. So, but imagine if it's time for you to have parenting time and you go to pick up your child and your ex-wife won't let you. So you start banging on the door, kicking on the door, screaming and yelling, and the neighbors heard it. And you give up and leave and go away. That's going to be spun that you're violent. You're a very angry person, potentially assaultive. Maybe the police were called. There's a police report, and that comes up in the future to make it spun that you don't deserve parenting time, or you deserve only monitored visitation. So you have to be aware of all your actions and how they can be perceived.
You said something and it reminded me of one of my own experiences. I was trying to find it. Sometimes when we do these, it's not really good for me because we'll have these conversations and then I'll remember something. And then I'll go back and try to find the email or whatever. It's honestly, it's not really good for me. But you were talking about the knife and the accusation, and I remembered I used to have my kids over, and sometimes we'd go to the Chick-fil-A around the corner, and it's like, especially if you guys are an every other weekend dad or something like that, you know exactly what this is like, where you just try to pack in as many good experiences in the shorter amount of time that you get. And it's really challenging because you have to sort of walk this line of, I don't want to like be a Disney dad or like spoil my kids or like buy my kids or anything like that, because I need to also have like boundaries and clear expectations and rules and et cetera, so forth. Um, so it's really challenging. And dads tend to be more of the clear, explicit boundary, expectation, consequence, um, you know, the disciplinarians typically in the relationship. And um, it's a difficult line to walk. And I just remember getting this email from my ex, And to this day, I don't know. I don't even know what the accusation is to this day. I took my kids sometimes to this Chick-fil-A and we would get like ice creams or shakes or something. I can't even remember. And the accusation in email, which wasn't spelled out, but she said, I know what you're trying to do. I have no idea.
Mm.
To this day, I haven't seen my kids in 8 years. I don't know what that means. But an accusation was there, and I'm sure to all of her friends or to the attorney or to the court, there's some implicit accusation there, and who knows what it is, what it means, and it's true, I guess, whatever it is. Um,
Well, and that's the thing, you'll never know.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, like saying that, like in a restaurant, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird because it's like your kids. I don't know if you felt this way. I didn't feel like my kids were spies. I just felt like my kids were being put in the middle. They were being, I don't know, they were collateral. I don't know how to say it. They weren't pawns. It was like they were being exploited for something. You know what I mean?
Well, they are in the middle, and I know. I think at the time your kids were, let's say, younger. So it's not that they're spies, but it's when they go back to mom's house. It's like, what do you do? Where'd you go? What dad say? Does he have a new girlfriend?
Right.
So they're not spies, but they're being pumped for
Yeah.
information. So it's
Yeah.
like they're being used as mommy's little private investigators, and they don't even have the title or the badge to go with it yet. But what I saw later, and I believe that happened to me too, but when they become teens, and if there's parent alienation going on and they're becoming aligned with mom, now it's like they've been used as this little PI for so long already that they it's like the kids as teens now they believe they have to look for things or that they're supposed
Yeah.
to look for things. So they do become spies and report back to mom. And in my case, they were trying to record me.
Mm.
And they were actually removing documents from my home for mom. Now, whether they were told to or felt they needed to or should, um, so that may change as their age changes, and just depends where that parental alignment is in their head.
Yeah. Well, whoever's watching this, if you watched this far, you're watching two dudes that obviously know what this feels like. I just got to pause and say, remember to love your kids. You'll never regret doing whatever it takes to love your kids. Because if you turn and turn defensive and protect yourself from your kids, you're going to ruin that relationship, even if you get to stay in their lives, and you'll regret that for the rest of your life. Um, I know I when they were over sometimes, especially in the middle of the fighting, my kids would talk about things like over. It's kind of funny because like what we're talking about, like it's like when they're over at dad's, it's like I don't even want to know. Literally, don't tell me anything. Like I already trust me. I already see enough emails and respond to enough stuff to the attorney and all this, but just crap. I don't want to think about her. And it's really easy to get frustrated and sort of say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about mom or whatever. And I would just implore you guys. I know that, trust me, I remember feeling all of the feelings then. I know what I'm asking, but I'm asking you guys, if you're listening, suck it up, deal with it, love your kids, and remember that that's their mom and they love her too. They love you, they love her too. And I know I'm asking a lot, but don't 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 think of your kids as spies, you know, because it sort of means like enemy, really. And you can't do that. You got to love your kids. And even if you are like us, where you haven't seen them in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you'll never regret just showing them love when they were kids. So I don't know. I had to say that.
Yeah, good point.
Well, I feel like this next point is one that you're really good at. So I'm going to say it and maybe leave some space for you. And that is kind of the opposite of what you were saying earlier, but it is true. Don't mess up so that people can see it, but document everything: text, emails, um, interactions in person if it's legal. Some states, most states, I believe, are one party states. That means that as long as one party knows they're being recorded, it's legal. Wherever you are, you need to know this. If I would say this is probably one of the most important points of this conversation. Um, whatever can be documented, you must document it. And if it's recording, whether it's an app on your phone to record phone calls, it's don't delete all of your text or any of your text, even the ones that make you look. Don't delete anything. Your attorney will know what to do with these texts. Like, don't delete anything. Emails, if you guys are having exchanges and they're intense, great, record it. Even if it's like a little mic in your pocket, whatever it takes. I'm not saying be difficult and try to find for every petty little thing to hang your ex on. Don't do that. Don't be that person. I'm just saying you have to protect yourself. Don't use this as a weapon to go after somebody. Just use it to protect yourself. If you start becoming that person that weaponizes everything, then you're no better than the other person, right? Um, but if these things are happening and you know they're happening, Joe Blow, your neighbor sees it happening, the teacher sees it happening, your kids see it happening, but there's no documented evidence, then it didn't happen. In the eyes of the court, if it can't be proven, then it's up to the eye of the beholder. It's subject to what the judge thinks or feels that day or who they want to side with or whatever. If there's irrefutable evidence, then it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll touch on it the best I can, but when I went through this, it was even before Facebook. So we'll kind of update things a little bit, but the best thing you can do is, for those that don't know, I used to be in law enforcement, so I wrote my documentation up as if it was almost like a homicide investigation. Everything was, and you can do this also, but it's everything is dates, times, who, what, where, when, why, how, witnesses' names. Just document everything like you're telling a story. Put down the date, the time, and this happened. I was here, this happened. She said this, I did this. Here, my friend was with me. He saw the whole thing occur. How the children reacted, but document everything in written form. Basically, have a journal, catalog it, tab it where they're very important and relevant things. Save all your texts, emails. There's apps now that you can use to communicate with your ex over. I would select an app where you can document and record things on that. In person and over the phone. As far as recording, I'll just spin off what David said. Know your state law, look it up, and if you don't understand what it says, I would talk to your attorney before you do anything. Most states are one-party states, but like in my state, you can record someone over the phone or other audio recording devices, and as long as one party knows about it, it's okay. But in person, if you're actually in person and had a hidden mic, that's actually, I believe it's a felony. So the one party rule doesn't apply for in-person recording of conversation. So you would have to divulge ahead of time that you're being recorded. So I think just the important thing there is check with your state law first. But when recordings are appropriate, photographs, if your children come back and they're injured, photographs of that. Some people will actually videotape statements from their children. I would be very careful doing that, because that can also be made to look bad for you also. So I think it depends what it's about, and the importance of it, but know how it can also be used against you, that you're maybe badgering your children and trying to record what they say, or you've influenced what they're trying to say. But documentation, keeping records, is very important when it comes to your custodial evaluation with a social worker. You're going to have to give him or her copies of all this data that you've collected. It may be important to the court what the social worker recommends to the court and passes on to the court, and so on. But even if you don't think it's that important, I would record it anyway. Maybe I know some dads even go to the point of, if they live in the same city as their ex, they kind of have basically a journal of what they do with their life on a day-to-day basis, where they're at, who they're with, their work schedule, so that down the road an allegation can't be made that you were at her home stalking her or surveilling her home, when in fact you can prove that you were on shift at work across town. So I would just document everything you possibly can, because what doesn't seem important today could be very important tomorrow. And when it comes to documentation, I'm older, I've been through this, and I haven't seen my kids in almost 24 years, so a lot of time's gone by. I hear about 2 or 3 years ago, literally just finally shredded and destroyed boxes and boxes of all my data. I just figure I'm never going to see my kids again. It's not important for me. And if I die, I don't need somebody reading through all that BS down the road. So I just destroyed it, except for one thing. Maintain your child support records and any other financial records that you have regarding the divorce, child support, other financial obligations that you're ordered by the court. Keep those until the day you die and your estate is closed, so that claims can't be made against you or your estate later in life. I think I'll just end that part on documentation. So,
I got nothing to add.
oh, you have to have something.
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, I rambled on
Okay.
my first part, so
Okay. Well,
I think that was mine. So I think the next one, point number 8, I think is yours.
yeah. You're not going to take it since you took mine? All right, that's okay. I'll do it anyway.
Well, now wait a second. I was originally going to choose evens because odds had more.
Okay, well, then I'll just stick with it. Number 8, control yourself at all times. You're not just in a relationship anymore. You're in a legal environment. Every interaction matters. You don't win by being right. You win by being disciplined. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Your buttons are going to be pushed. There's times you're going to be angry. There's times you're going to be extremely emotional, but out in the open, you can't be angry or emotional. You're going to have to suck it up. Go to a gym afterwards and hit a bag. Go out in the woods and scream, hit a tree, go target practice. But you cannot afford to get emotional and have anybody see it. It will all be used against you. There will probably be allegations made that you're emotional anyway, that you're angry or dangerous anyway. So why give the other person any evidence to be used against you? And that kind of goes back to our last point. Yeah, you need to maintain evidence and collect evidence. Don't think for a moment she's not being told to do the same thing. So don't give them anything they can use against you. And that same goes with your kids. There may be times that you have to be the dad and have the rules, and there may be times your kids are being out of control too, and discipline them appropriately, but don't lose your cool with your kids either, because it's going to get back to mom. And the least thing you want to have happen is that this gets back to a social worker, to the court.
Yeah, I think before it veers into the last point, I think that there are a lot of things in family court that just don't match up with what at least I thought court was supposed to be. And boy, impressions mean a lot. And if you're the kind of person that really cares about your kids and is really frustrated about the allegations being made, and you, as I like to say, you act completely natural to unnatural things happening to you, you are going to get blindsided. You're going to have this idea that um, things are going to work out in your favor if you're telling the truth, you're being honest, you give all the information for better or worse, and you're going to find really quickly that it doesn't matter. And that um, in these instances where I'm not trying to be like an alpha male red pill bro, I'm just saying um, when all of these visitors, guests to a zoo are allowed to poke and prod a lion. And one day that lion finally snaps and goes crazy between the cage and does something. They're going to put that lion down. It doesn't matter how many years that lion existed there, how many days it was fine. It doesn't matter all of the things that everyone else did to provoke it. What mattered was that one defining moment where it messed up. And maybe you're listening to this, maybe you're watching this and you did that thing. I'm not saying just give up, it's over. Um, this part I think is more for the people that are in the middle of it that haven't done that yet. And we're just saying you need to have some resolve. Um, but for those that did make a mistake, there's still work you can do to get that favor back. But I think at the end of the day, what Craig said, you got to control yourself, because none of the things that any of us ever thought would matter in court matter. It's seemingly more about impressions. And if you make a bad impression and you lose favor in family court, the consequences can be lifelong. And so keep yourself together, get a punching bag, like Craig said, do whatever you got to do, scream into a pillow. I don't know. I'm not saying this is a great idea, but I got a motorcycle and sometimes I twisted the throttle and went wild, but no one, same, right?
Yeah.
But no one could ever say that I blew up on my kids. Um, I did respond out of anger a few times. Idiot. If you did it, stop it. Right?
Well, and if you did, own up to it and
Own it.
say, be honest, bring your feelings out. But you just say, that's not me. But yeah, in that time I was very distraught and emotional, and just own up to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I think at this point it's more about honor. You can live with yourself. Because I personally don't have that much faith in the family court system. So I mean that I don't know if I would say that all magistrates, referees, judges will honor your honor if you own it, but at least you can live with yourself, because the second you start lying, these people deal with liars every day, and in my opinion most of them are liars. Um you're not going to be able to, trust me, you're not going to be able to walk in their realm and perform at their level. So just be honest, because these people, they're trained to snuff that kind of stuff out. Like this is what they do every day. You're just another name. You're another case number. Like the whole best interest thing, I don't buy it. You're another name. You're another number, and they deal with this kind of stuff every day. So don't give them a reason. Don't act out. And if you do, own it. And at least you can live with yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and before we move on, this is about controlling yourself at all times. I just want to add one thing, and I didn't come up with this phrase. I heard of it before, but after being through the ringer myself, I kind of wonder if it's true. But for now, I'll just say it's my perception that I believe, some believe that as far as family court goes, the thought process of a judge is that I'll just say this phrase: the worst mother is still better than the best father. And I just wonder if far too often if that's not how a judge really believes based on so many of the outcomes I've seen. So if we want to just assume for a brief second that that's a true thought process of a judge, then why give them anything to reinforce that thought? So it just goes back to control yourself and be as rational as you possibly can be. And with that, I will turn the last point over to Mr. David here.
All right. Well, the last point is what actually decides these cases, which is, in my opinion, nothing. I mean, like I said, when I said best interest, if you're listening, you do like me and you watch videos with your phone in your pocket, like I can't emphasize how many times I'm doing air quotes, how hard I am doing air quotes. Best interest, it's a bogus term. Why? Because it's not defined. And if someone defines it, their definition varies to the next court, to the next custody evaluator, guardian ad litem. That is a soapbox for another day. But most people think that custody cases come down to facts or fairness or who's the better parent. It does not. In some cases, maybe. I don't want to, lump every single judge or attorney or guardian ad litem together and say that they're all bad because I know of good ones. But I just really don't believe in the system. And the reason is, like I said before, these people, you're not the only family they're dealing with. They're dealing with dozens of cases every week. And they don't know you. They don't know your ex. And they certainly don't know your children in the way that you do. So, how could they possibly know what the best interest is? How could they possibly know the psychology of what you are going through, what your ex is going through, what your child is going through? They depend on experts as witnesses sometimes. And those expert witnesses don't even fully understand the trauma that goes on in family court from parental alienation. They don't understand how many of these things that maybe came from your childhood have landed you in this scenario, in any personality disorders or defects that you may have or your ex may have, and what profound effects that might have on the case. They don't know any of that. Somehow we've allowed ourselves to allow these people that put on costumes and robes and titles to be the arbiters of what is in the best interest of our family that they don't know. My opinion. So this last point, I think, is going to be a lot of a hot take opinion. A lot of it comes down to the people. I think it's interesting because you can have like a great judge, bad attorney, or a good attorney, bad judge. And the same case can be litigated in all 50 states with 50 different outcomes. How does that work? How is that possible? Right? All the facts are the same. The players are different. The rules are different. And not just state to state, but even county to county, judge to judge. So I think the biggest thing to take away here is that listen to all of the points that we made before this point, because it's out of your control, other than you. Everything involved in this is out of your control, other than you. The biggest thing that you can control, the most important thing, is yourself. Because the judges, the attorneys, the impressions made in the room, despite you doing whatever you can do to be the best version of you, to be the best dad, best husband, whatever, none of it matters. It's subjective, and these other actors are involved now. And you're not afforded the same things that you would be afforded in a well, like this is Craig and I. We have one of our biggest soapboxes is the evidentiary standard in family court, because you have these accusations that are basically criminal accusations, and they can bear the consequences almost equal to the consequence of a criminal court, right? I mean, if you get a restraining order that sticks, I mean, it can be for life, or it could be stayed, or not stayed. It could be, they could just, when the term is up, they could file for it to be, however long renewed. Yeah, different states have different terms, but I think I've seen one where it was like 50 years or something like that. Okay, I mean that may as well be lifelong. And so, I guess the thing to note is that all of everything that you ever thought that you saw in court cases, it's not a criminal court. You don't have a right to an attorney. You don't have the same level of evidentiary standards, which is to say that nobody needs to prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt. Decisions can be made on limited information, competing stories, and what seems more believable in the moment, I guess, or whoever presents it in such a way that's more believable to the judge, or, or whoever's attorney has more favor in the eyes of that judge. It can be that simple. Um, so that means that you don't. Sometimes you don't have to prove anything or disprove anything. It's out of your hands, and that's probably the worst and best thing about all of this. Because you might be in the middle, like maybe you came to this video and you're in the beginning of it, or maybe you're in the middle of it or the end of it, and you're in varying stages, or you were in varying stages, and you're completely dumbfounded at why this has happened to you. And I think, again, the biggest takeaway is that the only thing you can control is yourself. And some of these things that have happened to you may or may not be your fault. And so you need to give yourself a little bit of grace. I think in some instances, it can be as simple as who acted early, who filed first, who has proof, who avoided the critical mistakes like we talked about. I think those can be factors, but um, I think the best takeaway is control yourself, which is the last point. Control what you can control, because what actually decides court cases is who knows. So I don't know. It's kind of a funny point to make when what actually decides court cases can change from literally in the same courtroom, different judge, different attorney, whatever. But if you do all the things that we've said before, like document stuff, control your emotions, be above board when it comes to allegations, I think you're going to be in a better position to protect yourself than to end up like guys like us, which I think is, at least for me, this is part of why I do this, is to help guys not end up down some of the deeper ends of the mistakes. So anyway, my takeaway is that what decides these court cases, who knows? But at the end of the day, you can only control yourself.
Well, I think I'll take this kind of where you started on this topic. Like in my case, I had a really good attorney. I fired my first one, but I ended up with a really good attorney. We became friends. He fought like hell for me to his detriment of his own practice. The social worker that basically was not basically, she was assigned to do the custodial evaluation, and her weight was like gold to the judge. She had confirmation bias. She was a man hater. I know of 12 other men that during the same time period saw her for their cases. And out of those 12 fathers, only one received a favorable recommendation for custody. The other 11, she recommended against the fathers. But she was corrupt. And I found out later there was corruption between her and the judge. And the judge, I compare most of these judges to when you go to the doctor. You're in the exam room, the doctor comes to the door and grabs the clipboard outside. And I think it's just like the judge. He picks up that file and he opens it up. Oh, and he reads your name. And that's the first time he heard about you or anything about you, your family, or your case. And he's about to hear evidence for maybe 1, 2, 4 hours if you're lucky. And he's going to make a decision that determines the fate of your relationship with your children for the rest of your life with them. As far as what wins a case, it's hard to say, but do all the right things. You know, do the documentation we spoke about. One thing I forgot to touch on when we talked about that topic was social media. For God's sakes, guys, go through and sanitize your social media before you ever get into this, because I've seen some of your social media and it scares me to see some of the things I see on some of your pages. And you will be ordered to turn over your passwords to the court or to that social worker, and they are going to look at your photos, your posts, your likes, what pages you follow. So, you know, we're a little off topic here, but don't forget to deal with your social media, but also look at hers. But as far as what wins the case is do all the right things. You have to do all the right things. Have the evidence, support yourself, stand up for yourself. But as far as what's going to lose that case for you is potentially the anger, the times you flared up in anger and maybe did something or said something that you shouldn't have done. So avoid all those things. But as far as what's going to win a case in a particular courtroom, I have no clue. I don't. In my particular case, my family, my friends, knowing they knew me, many of them knew me for decades. They knew my ex-wife. When I did not get custody, everybody was shocked, totally shocked. And you cannot have a perceived outcome walking into that courtroom because you have no clue. And as far as what wins the case, I can't tell you. I can tell you what might lose your case. And I think we've covered all that. But hang in there. And I know we'll have a closing statement here at the end, and I'm going to turn it back to David for now.
Copy that. Yeah, all of it. Yeah, so I mean, before we close, we made this based off of a couple of the articles that I showed in the beginning of this video, from Melissa's Anatomy of a Custody Case. Now, the organization that we were with during that time. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and everybody sort of mended the relationships. However, that footage that was shot for it was like a 2-part video segment for that workshop, has, as far as I know, never seen the light of day. And there's only like 2 or 3 people that have it, I being one of those people, but I didn't think that it was right to publish it. Like I said, I've had a recent conversation with Melissa, and I'll be getting her that footage. And if she ever posts it, I would love to share it on our pages. Until then, we have these blogs that I have sort of unpacked, and today we did the first 2. Like I said, I think there's like 8 or 9.
Sounds about right.
And today we did the first 2. So if people like this, if people want more of this, we can go through a couple more of them at a time. Or if we just feel froggy and bored and got nothing better to do, we can talk about it. But anyway, I just wanted to circle back to that, and just to say, if you see any of these blogs on our page and you want to talk about it, send us a message. We have a contact box. You can email us on the website. You can send us a message on, we're on the big platforms. We're on X, we're on Instagram and Facebook. So you can message us there or email us through the contact box, or info@fathersanon.org. And we're happy to talk to you. We're a very small nonprofit. We don't really do like phone calls. We have full-time lives. So we do this like in the extra of our time. So we're more than happy to respond. It just might take some time. But we're more than happy to talk to you about any of these things you're going through. Even if it's not like, what do I need to do in my court case? And if we don't know, we're happy to say we don't know, or refer you to someone else. But even if it's just like, dude, I think I'm going to have a breakdown. Like, I don't know what to do. We're here for that. That's honestly the main reason that we exist. We want to run these support groups we have every month. We'd like to have more. The more people that join us, the more we can have. We'd love for other people to run support groups with us, for us. The idea isn't to mope around and just be bummed about everything that we just talked about. It's to say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's how we can deal with it. Here's what to do. Let's rise above, right? So I don't want people to think that we have these support groups and they're just like crying sessions. Not to say that you're not allowed to cry. I think all of us have cried. But I mean, ultimately the point is actionable information. So hopefully what we've shared today is some actionable information. I think for those of us that have been around, it might be obvious, but I mean, you know, for me, it's been 8 or 9 years, right? When I was first getting into this, I didn't know any of anything that we talked about today. I didn't know any of it. And so it would have been nice to know. And also, there's tons of bad advice out there. Maybe we're bad advice. That's the other thing, right? There's so many like pages and public figures, and everybody's got an opinion. I guess at the end of the day, let your conscience be your guide, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's my closer. I guess, do you have any final thoughts before I try to come up with a closer off the top of my head?
Yeah, I do. Before I get into my little final statement here, like David said, we're a small organization, Fathers Anonymous, and we're sincerely here to help dads and help you going through whatever you're going through, whether it be a family court, your situation with your kids, custodial issues, child support discussions, whatever. And we're not attorneys, we're not social workers, we're just dads. We've been through the ringer, but we've talked to a lot of dads, and I love David like a brother, and I think he would say the same, maybe not, but
I
we're gonna
definitely
give
do.
we're gonna be sincere and honest and real with you if we give you advice and these kind of discussions we have. If you would share our videos, share our content elsewhere. Not that we want to grow likes or clicks. We want to expose who we are so that we can help more dads. And I think that's what we're about. So if you could share these videos and share our page to your friends and other pages that you may be on, that'd be great. My last message to everyone is, we're all going through a real trying time. I know this hurts David a lot to do this, and that after even 24 years of playing some real mind games with me, and I know a lot of you guys are hurting out there. It's critical for you to know that you're not alone, because I've spoken to dads almost weekly, monthly, and they feel like they're just completely out there by themselves and they have no clue what to do, what's going on. And they also don't understand there's thousands, if not millions of dads in the same position they are, with similar, very similar stories. So don't think for a moment that you're going through this all by yourself, because you're not. And there are people and organizations that can help you, ours and others too. But in ending, take care of yourself, fill your life with hobbies and interests and career, maybe going back to school, stay busy, go for a walk, go for a run, go target practice, and hop on your motorcycle and do things you probably shouldn't do. But you have to take care of yourself both physically and emotionally through all this. And it will end. The child support will end. The family court case will end. Hopefully at the end of that, you have a relationship with your kids. And if you're like we are, still holding the door open a little crack, you have to live your life. So that's how I wanted to end this. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Solid. Yeah, I mean, I guess to summarize everything that we've talked about, maybe I'll run through the points. Point one was you're not starting equal. Man, I don't know. I feel compelled to just continue to say the only thing that you can control in this is yourself, right? And so, point number one, you're not starting equal. Can you control that? Absolutely not. You can control what you do about it, right? So, first of all, you listen to this. Be responsible with what you've learned. You're not starting equal. Find out how you can level the playing ground. Don't be malicious. Don't do any of the games and the back and forth. Just find ways that you can put yourself on equal footing. And some of those things are like, don't move out of the family home until you get that temporary order. Um, Make sure you have all your facts, your evidence, right? All of that kind of stuff. Point two, time works against you. If you're waiting and you're trying to hold out to do the right thing, kind of what I did before filed, it's only going to work against you, right? Um, you can control your emotions and um sort of your responsibility to yourself and your children. I knew that I didn't want to have my kids grow up in a home where they saw the other person disrespect the other person on a regular basis. I knew that I wasn't okay with that. And once you're checked out mentally, emotionally in your relationship, be responsible, right? You owe that. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for your kids, because a lot of people think that they're staying together for their kids. And I'm not promoting divorce. I'm just saying one person said this to me and it stuck with me forever. It's better to have a broken home than to have to grow up in one. And if you are living in a toxic relationship, that's only hurting your children. And just because you break up, you have a divorce, that that doesn't sever that relationship. You're still going to have to deal with the other person, right? So again, this is something you can control. So get in front of it. Point three, um, this kind of stuff is blindsiding to you. Um, it catches you off guard. Great. It doesn't matter. You're here now. And so you've got to be responsible. Get on your feet. Um, when we run these support group meetings, we have some steps that we like to talk about in the end. And one of them is to normalize your activity, right? As soon as you can find a way to create new habits, the sooner you can sort of find healthy things like what Craig was talking about, like get on a motorcycle, go to the range, um, do taekwondo, whatever it takes, like find a routine that's going to help you dig out of filling the void of what you've lost, and also helping find a purpose, because I think that that is a big thing that we lose. As I don't know about you, Craig, but for me, um, losing the marriage, being the father role, the husband, all of that, like, was detrimental to me because I thought I had failed. And if you just sit in that and wallow in it, it's not good. It's over, right? Move on, find something, find a purpose. Um, an allegation can change everything. Stay factual, get the documents, do whatever you got to do, rise above. If you're in court, cross-examined, keep to the facts. Answer simple. Don't take the bait. Point five, vague claims get weaponized. Um, Same thing as the last. Have all the facts, answer truthfully. Don't let don't take the bait. Don't let them get you riled up on some silly accusation. Like I said, I dad went to the moon and deprived my kids of oxygen. If you're reasonable about it, then everyone else is going to be reasonable. But if you act in some kind of way, then they're just going to think both of these people are crazy and they're both going to be a problem. Here we go. Buckle up. Um, Point six, you're a moment away. Same thing, right? If you do respond, react in some kind of way that can be used against you, it will be. Just imagine like when you're getting your Miranda rights read to you, anything you can and say will be used against you. Well, it's not can, it will. 1,000% will be used against you. So rise above. You can control that. Again, this is the summary, is all of there's one thing that you can control, and that's you. Document everything. You can control that. That was point seven. Point eight is control yourself. And point nine was that you can't control literally anything else. So again, the summary for me is there's one thing you can control in this, and that is yourself. And I think at the end of the day, your children, as they grow older, if you maintain a relationship, if you get reunited, or you don't, and someday they see your legacy that you left behind, hopefully they will see or know that you were a man that was always honest and true to themselves, and they're someone that they can respect, and that you led a life that they would want to lead, even despite everything else, right? So um, Craig and I both are long-term alienated parents, and at bare minimum, I hope that I lead a life that my kids would say he was an honorable man. I wish I would have known him now that I've come around. That's like the best worst case scenario or worst best case scenario. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's my final thought. You have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I kind of said that, just take care of yourself, guys, and sign up for our monthly newsletters and support meetings.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for doing this. Let me show you guys if for whatever reason you came to this video on the YouTubes. I'll just pull up the website, and if you heard, oh, he's saying sign up. How do I do that? I'll just put it on the screen. Here you go. Share screen window. Here it is. Here's our website. Right here in the click on it, about us, support group, and newsletters. Right here, you just put your email in right there, and there's a little like sort of what's it about kind of deal, and then we have a little disclaimer and the house rules down here if you want to read through those. But that's how you do it. Thank you guys for taking all the time that you did. Like I said, I remember being new to this and being desperate for any information. So if you listened all the way through to this, then maybe you're that person. If you need to talk to somebody, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And join one of these meetings. Be a part of the change. If you want to get involved in advocacy, we'll direct you to whatever suits you best. If it's doing this, cool. If it's not, cool. We'll help you find a place where you can thrive. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, you too. And I would just add to the viewers, if there's a topic that you would like to see David and I discuss, send it in to the email and maybe we'll talk about it next time.
The show. All right. Well, thank you guys. Until next time. See ya.